Webster's dictionary, faith is defined as a belief in something for which there is no proof. As Christians, we believe that God created the universe and that Christ was born, died, and rose from the grave. Even if you do not believe the biblical account of these events, one can see that the universe is too orderly to come by chance, and Christ's resurrection can be proved by the hundreds of eyewitnesses that saw his risen form. The children of Israel had even more proof than we do now. The Lord had delivered them from the Egyptians, led them through the wilderness, and enabled them to capture Canaan. Despite all the things that God had done for them, they still sinned, and the southern part of the kingdom of Judah was captured. In Daniel chapter 1, verse 1, it says, "In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto them, and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand." Their captors, the Babylonians, were the rulers of the Middle East and led by King Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar actually ended up capturing Jerusalem twice, and after the city was captured for a second time, a large portion of the population was deported into Babylon. Daniel 1, verse 3-4 says, "And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring a certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in wisdom." Apparently, Daniel met the criteria for being one of the well-favored children. His first test of faith came in verse 5. "And the king appointed unto them a daily provision of the king's meat, and of the wine which he drank." The king's meat was meat most likely offered up to the Babylonian gods. Daniel, knowing the Hebrew laws that forbade him from eating the meat, was forced with the ultimatum of eating the meat and obeying Nebuchadnezzar's law, or the laws that God had set. I have little doubt in my mind that Daniel had to think over the situation more than once. In verse 8 it states, "But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor the wine which he drank." Daniel went against the precedent that the king set forth. More than likely, many of Daniel's former friends ate of the meat and disobeyed God's orders. The head of the eunuchs responded in verse 10, "I fear my lord the king, who hath appointed your meat and your drink, for why should he see your faces worth liking than the sword of children which are with the sword? Then shall ye make me endanger my head to your hand." The chief of the eunuchs was afraid that the young man would be malnourished from not eating meat, and if that was the case, he would probably be killed. Daniel appeased the eunuch's fears in verse 12. "Prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat, and water to drink. And let our countenances be looked upon before thee, and the countenances of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat. And as thou seest, deal with thy servants." After 10 days had transpired, Daniel and his comrades were healthier than those that ate of the king's meat. No doubt, through the whole ordeal, Daniel gained a closer relationship with God. Because of the faith of the four men, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, God rewarded them by giving them great understanding and wisdom in the matters of the empire. Daniel's second trial of faith came when Nebuchadnezzar had a vision. Chapter 2, verse 1 states, "In the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams where his spirit was troubled, and sleep brake from him. The astrologers asked the king what the dream was, but he said he had forgotten. The astrologers pestered Nebuchadnezzar so much about his dreams that he would have killed them if Daniel did not intervene. Daniel spoke to the king's captain about the decree, and he also spoke to the king and asked for time to interpret the dream. Daniel told his comrades his challenge, and together they prayed together to ask what the dream meant. One night while Daniel was sleeping, God revealed the dream to him and the meaning of it. The first thing that Daniel did when he awoke was thank God. For sake of time, I won't discuss the dream or the meaning of it, but when Daniel told the king the meaning, he and his comrades were rewarded and blessed. Nebuchadnezzar proclaimed that God was a God of gods, but despite his proclamation, it did not stop him from being judged. Nebuchadnezzar had another dream, except this time he told it to Daniel and the soothsayers. Daniel went on to explain the dream of the tree and how it was cut down and the seeds scattered. The king ordered Daniel to interpret the dream because he knew the holy God was in him. It only took 1 hour for the Lord to reveal the meaning of the dream to Daniel, and naturally, when Daniel heard the dream, he was disturbed. Daniel explained to Nebuchadnezzar that he was the tree that was cut down, that his heart was changed from a man's heart to a beast's heart, and that his rule was taken away from him. In chapter 4, verse 25, it says, "Daniel, that they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the fields. They shall make thee eat the grass as oxen, and they shall wet thee with the dew of the grass as oxen. And 7 times shall pass over thee, till thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomever he will." Daniel went on to implore the king to give up his wicked ways, but Nebuchadnezzar did not. In verse 30, Nebuchadnezzar sealed his own fate by boasting about the kingdom that he had built and how he had made it strong. While he was still boasting in his own conceit, he went insane. Nebuchadnezzar apparently learned his lesson after the 7 years had passed, because in verse 37 it says, "Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven. All those works are truth, and his ways judgment, and those that walk in pride he is able to abase." Daniel was apparently a very capable ruler in the capacity that he performed. Even after the collapse of the Babylonian Empire, Daniel was still in a prominent position of power. In chapter 6, verse 4, it says, "Then the presidents and the princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find none occasion or fault." The only thing that they could find that Daniel did was pray to God 3 times a day. They devised and tricked King Darius into writing a decree which forbade anyone from praying to any god for 3 days. Daniel knew the decree, but as he was supposed to do, he obeyed God rather than men. When Daniel was seen praying, he was promptly arrested and thrown into the lion's den. Darius didn't want to throw him into the pit, but in Persian law, once a law was signed, it could not be taken away. The next morning, Darius was overjoyed to find Daniel alive and well. Because of the faith that Daniel had in God, Darius made a decree in verse 26. "I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God and steadfast forever." Because of Daniel's faith, he perhaps influenced hundreds of people that he came into contact with over his lifetime. He also leaves an excellent example for us to follow and try to imitate in our Christian life.